So I have a Razor E200, and I found this at the thrift store, and it wouldn't work. And I also have another one over here. This is an E175, and they both are not functioning yet. But after doing some troubleshooting, it's clear that I just need new batteries, so I'll show you how to upgrade. I've just taken the cover off. It's very simple. You just have some screws here and then a couple here that require a nut on the end, and you can just pop that off. These last two right over here, just put a wrench underneath to hold the nut. The rest of them just come off without a wrench below that. So what I've done here is I've got a 24-volt power supply, and I've jammed them into the power supply from the battery, and I can get the light to come on and off. So that's a good sign. And so it just turns a little bit when connected to the charger. So the issue here, because we got some movement and the fact that you got a light on, now it's off because it depleted whatever reserve I had back here. The problem here is simply the batteries. But we can also, if you didn't know that, you could test it if you have a meter. So I'm going to disconnect these jumper wires. When you open it up, it looks something like this. So what you can do is that over here at this port, right here, you've got, if you trace the wires, you've got a red one going to this battery and a black one going back to the other battery. That's the main power supply going to the motor controller. Now you can see here with my charger disconnected, it's showing nothing. And so if you have a meter, you can just put it on volts right here. Here, I've got a fluke, you put it on volts. Let me back up a little bit so you can see both at the same time. And you put the red one on the red one here, the little right there, and the black one on the black one, and make sure they don't cross them. And you can see here we have 1.9 volts. And this has been charging for days. So it doesn't matter how long you charge it, it's never going to fix itself. The batteries need to be replaced. And so in this case, that is one way of doing it. If you've connected the charger and you can't even get any light at all, you can be pretty certain it's the batteries. Now, when you're going to replace these batteries, you've got a couple of choices. You can put the lead acid batteries that came with it back in, and I'll put a link below. And the second option to spend just a little bit more money is to upgrade them to lithium iron phosphate. And that's what I've chosen to do. These are the same capacity, except they last much, much longer as far as the number of cycle time. They don't degrade over time as quickly as lead acid. They're much lighter, and they just perform better. So I will put a link below for the exact batteries that I bought, and I'll show you how to change them out now. Now, the best way to do this is to get organized and look how the batteries are in there right now. And so we have here the negative of one on top with a positive on the bottom right here on the left. And then when we go to the right, they're reversed. You have the positive of the other battery on the top and the negative on the left. And notice that they're base to base like this. So what I'm going to do is lay the new batteries out on the table in the exact same configuration, and so that I don't make a mistake and I get this exactly like they are. And so that's how I'm going to lay it out, just like there. That matches. And on this side, that matches over here. Now the next step is to carefully pull these batteries out, and the left one is not going to come out as easy as the right one. And the reason is the left one has a short lead going to the fuse over on the front of the scooter, and so we have to disconnect that lead on that particular one. Another thing, you have to make sure that you've unplugged the batteries from that harness that I was showing you. Now in this step right here, I'm taking a knife and I'm going to cut off the silicone that they have over the terminals. We need to cut this off so that we can remove the solder and redo it onto our new batteries. And then you can either put silicon back on your new batteries, or you can do like I did with some electrical tape to protect them from any kind of short circuit. Alright, as you can see here, all the terminals are now ready to desolder. I have disconnected that short lead going to the fuse. And now we're ready to take these wires off one at a time. Now how I recommend you do this is lay your batteries out on the bench exactly in this position and take one wire off at a time and then solder it onto the new batteries, and then you're never going to make a mistake this way, because if you do it one at a time, you're always going to stay organized and correct. Now I've chosen one wire where the camera got a good shot of to show you how to desolder it. And so I have a very fine soldering iron, and I had to turn it up to 900 degrees to do this procedure. But this is how you remove a particular wire.
So you got to hold this and move it around quite a bit. You can't just do it in one spot. There we go. All right.
Now I'm going to show you a different wire because I have good coverage here on this particular wire. But you take the bare terminal and you press your soldering iron on there and heat it up. And then you add some solder and you tin that terminal up, and you get a pool of solder going. And it's important that you do this first, and it has to be a pretty big one. And then you take your wire and then you move your iron on top, and then you melt that solder into the other one, and then hold that very steady, let it cool, and then carefully let it go. And that's how you do it, and you do that one at a time. Now what you'll find is that you will have to bring your new batteries up into this compartment here to do the final wiring, because that long red one just probably won't reach down to your bench. And so I've got a pretty good shot here of soldering this last wire. And as you can see on the left, notice that that plug is disconnected. And I mentioned that before, but just really make sure that you do that, because if you make any mistake and accidentally have it both wired wrong, you might fry your controller. So again, we're going to tin up that terminal, and then we're going to solder that last one on there, and then this will be ready to go. Now the final step here is to put some electrical tape on the terminals and get those completely protected to prevent any short circuit, and then gently work the batteries back into their original position. So they're back to back like this, and you just tuck the wires around in there very carefully. And now you're ready to reconnect the plug that will put it back into contact with the motor controller.
Now I've got my clamp meter here out of one of the charge cables. I am currently charging. We got 2.3 amps going into our brand new battery pack. Very happy with that. And then you can see here that I put electrical tape over the contacts, and we have back to back like we did before. And then the negative, the main negative, goes down here to this switch, or the fuse, and we should be good to go. Now let's put the cover back on. Alright, the cover is really simple. Okay. So on this particular model, I believe it was the two in the center you need an Allen wrench, and this is a 5/32. Not sure why they did it like that. The other scooter had the same size, but whatever. Okay, and then the rest of these are just Phillips. At least these here in the front are just Phillips. Now I've had this charged and it's all ready to go. Should be. We'll turn the power on, and then you can just lift up this back part. and it works. So let's take it out for a spin.
Well, it works just fine, and in fact I've taken it around the block over and over and over again, and so far I have not depleted the battery, so I'm not quite sure what the range is, but I think what I'll do is set up some sort of course and try this and see how far to go, and then I'll put that in the next video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.